Hello and welcome to my channel, Corona Fine Art. Today I wanted to do a tutorial on how to paint rocks. So I've started a panoramic painting of the ocean, as you can see, and I've drawn out some rocks here just to help me with the perspective and planning the picture plane and the composition. And here on this side I've already started painting some of the rocks and adding in some different values of browns. And what I'm going to show you today is how to paint rocks by creating different values and creating a third dimension, so an illusion of a three-dimensional space with, as you can see here, some highlights, medium tones, and shadows. Right? So for my palette, I want to point out the different colors that I'm using today. I'm using a transparent burnt sienna, raw amber, ultramarine blue, and black. And I have my palette right here, so you can see I've been already mixing some of my colors, and I have three different brushes, three different sizes. I have a round small brush, a flat medium brush, and just another flat, which is a slightly smaller than the largest one. So the reason why I have different brushes is because I want to use a brush to apply the light values, one to apply the dark values, and one to blend in the colors and make a smooth transition depending on what I'm trying to achieve. So let's start by painting this big rock right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So I'm going to start with my smaller medium brush, and I'm going to take some white and some of the burnt sienna and mix the colors together. I'm going to start applying it on the canvas. Building the shape that I want this rock to take. And I want there to be a lighter highlight right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of white and go ahead and add it on here, just right on top, blending it in, not completely, but mostly, and still defining that shape of the rock. There we go. So now I am going to take the larger brush, and I am going to take some of the burnt sienna and some black and some of the ultramarine blue, and let me tell you, some people don't like to use black in their paintings, so they use Payne's gray, or sometimes they use the ultramarine blue with the burnt sienna, and that's perfectly fine. If you don't want to use the black, you can create your own mixture of paint so that you have your desired results. I like using black on my paintings. Therefore, I have mixed some of the black in there. Very little, because the black, because it's so strong and overpowering, it sometimes can overshadow some of the other colors that you've laid down. You don't want that to happen. So I'm just applying the paint all over the shape, and I'm going to go back to my medium brush with the light color paint. Just extend the shape upward a little bit here. All right. So on the dark area right here, and on the camera it might look a little darker than it is, so you can see depending on how the light hits it. What I want to do is create an even darker shadow. So for that, I'm going to apply a little bit more of that black with some ultramarine blue, just right here on the lowest part of the rock, and on the edge right here. So before my paint dries, I want to come with my blender brush and go ahead and start bringing in those colors together. Okay, so bring in some of this dark into the light. And if I'm getting too much of the light color into the dark, or too much of the dark into the light, either way, you know, and sometimes you don't want that. So what you do is you go ahead and clean your brush, get some of that excess paint off, and just continue to blend. And already you can start seeing that the rock is looking more three-dimensional. You know, you have a side that's the light area, the light is hitting that, and then you have a side of shadow there. So I'm going to go back with my brush using some of the dark color, because I actually want a little more of the shadow on here. I want to give it a little more shape. And bring it in a little bit here. And you know, with these rocks that I have right here, this is the first coat, the initial coat of paint that's just going to create a base for you to keep adding detail on top. So this right here, what I have on my painting so far, is just the very first coat of paint, the base, and on top of this I'm going to add multiple layers still of variations of paint, and I'm going to create different textures so you can see some of the moss that is growing here. And this rock is actually going to be some sort of lava rock. I want to incorporate some of that porous texture on the rocks at some point. And you know, I will definitely make another video showing you the addition of the texture. And sometimes these edges right here that are not desired by some, you know, some people like those fuzzy rough edges, but if you don't, just go ahead and wet your brush a little bit and then go over that edge, and that should create a smoother line. And there's always light and darkness. So notice how I gave a little brush stroke with some of the lighter color that I picked up on this side. And there's always some darkness on the light. And that is why I brought some of the dark paint to this side. So now I have a base for this rock. As you can see, I am going to quickly show you again just the same steps with this next rock. Again, I am using the 3 different size brushes that I showed you at the beginning, and I'm going to start with some lighter colors here. Mix in the white. This is the titanium white with the raw umber. And if you prefer to add your shades first, your shadows first, that's perfectly fine, because you'll still blend at the end. So really, it's important to get the paint on there, on the pores of the canvas. So that you don't have any white pores left. And if there are any left, you know, that's why we do multiple layers, so that we can cover those up. And it just makes the painting look a lot more finished and professional, in my opinion. So I've laid my light and darks, and now with my smallest brush I'm going to start bringing in the two together and create this edge right here of this rock to distinguish it from the one behind it. So following the same process as I showed you in the first rock, just bringing those values of brown together. Cleaning my brush. Here and there. Giving this rock form. And on this one, I also want to go back with some burnt sienna and some black and then some ultramarine blue that is just a little bit more black. So when mixing paint is all about proportions of, you know, a ratio of dark to light, just depending on the value of color that you want to achieve. You know, if you want a darker color, then of course you're going to want to use more of the black and more of the blue. And if you want a lighter color, you're going to use a hint of white on there. Okay, so I'm not gonna worry too much about this edge because there's another rock that's going back here, and that rock is actually much darker than the ones on the front. So just for reference, I'm gonna go ahead and apply a little dark edge back here so that you can distinguish between the rocks. And that rock back there is going to be much darker, but it's still, like I said before, some light into the dark. You always want a little bit of light in the dark, the shade areas as well. Okay. And I'm going to back in and of course add more layers with texture, like I said before. I hope that this tutorial was helpful to you. It's very fun to paint rocks because you get to create all these different shades of one color using, again, a limited and simple palette of 3 or 4 colors. And as you can see, 2 rocks took me about 20 minutes to paint. And then much more detail goes into my paintings as well. And I will definitely post another video showing you how I go back in to add some textural effects with some different brushes, not only in the rocks but in the water, in the ocean part here as well. And I'll share with you as I work on this panoramic piece. So again, thank you for watching, and remember to hit the like button and subscribe, and click on the bell to receive notifications. And also check out my website, coronafineart.com, if you would like to see more of my work. And I am also on Facebook and Instagram as Corona Fine Art. Thank you, and until next time.